Welcome to Writers Unscripted, curated by the Los Angeles Screenwriting Competition. Really, it's a form of community, what we have going on here with Writers Unscripted, where other writers and creators come on and talk about their journeys, their process. So everyone that is submitting screenplays and scripts for the competition this year will have a better understanding. They'll get some behind the scenes. They'll get some what, who, why, whens, and hows, just so their journey will be a little bit less bumpy. Now, today, we have some powerhouses in the house, and we're doing this for you people. You understand what I'm saying? These are brothers, and they're coming to us in the middle of so many projects. They're literally carving out some time for us because later on this year, they're going to have so much stuff out. They're extremely busy, but we welcome them to the Los Angeles Screenwriting Competition, Writers Unscripted today. Please welcome Edmund and Gary Entin. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for having us. We're so excited. So excited.
Yes, indeed. Now, usually what the host would do was like run down your credits before you come on, but I like to do it a little different. I want you guys in the room as I read your credits so we can talk about them and let people see, a little bit behind the scenes of each one, and then we can talk about your journey and everything that's going on. So let me read a little bit of it to get them started, and then we'll talk about it. So Gary and Edmund Entin are filmmakers and reality TV producers. Already intrigued, already interested. All right. Together, they've written and directed 5 feature films, including Outfest Audience Award-winning and GLAAD nominated Geography Club, Sins of Our Youth, a Lifetime. Now, see, we're going to talk about these Lifetime original Christmas movies because there's so many of them, and yeah, all right, we're going to talk about that. And so then we'll talk about also your reality credits. Now, Gary was a supervising producer of Baketopia on HBO Max and season 2 of RuPaul's Secret Celebrity Drag Race. And Edmund, his credits include Netflix The Wedding Coach, the Snapchat original Nikita Unfiltered, and currently, yes, owns Love and Marriage Huntsville and Marriage Boot Camp on WeTV. So Gary, Edmund, welcome to the show. Just identify yourself so people will know going forward.
Okay, so I'm Gary. This is Edmund. We are identical twins. Do you think we look a bit
different these days.
Yeah.
Gary's hair is curly, and it's perfectly natural, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not a perm, for identical twins.
All right. Well, you got to switch it up a little bit. Hey, listen, some of these interviews I'm gonna have an afro, and some of them will be like this. So I understand. We on the same page. We're on the same page. So I read some of your credits, but I really want to know what got you into it. Like, was it something when you were younger that made both of you say we want to make films?
Well, yeah. I mean, we were very, very fortunate. We grew up in a household that was extremely artistically inclined. Our father and mother were very deep into operettas and musical theater and old classic film. So we just grew up surrounded by that stuff. And so for us, we just sort of naturally kind of gravitated towards it. And
it's hard for us to remember a time where we weren't like totally interested in going into the arts.
100%. And we got our first video camera. We were in our first musical when we were 9, and we got our first video camera and started making movies when we were 10. And we've been
what was the musical? Come on, let's hear it.
We were Orphans and Oliver.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I think our grandmother thought that was pretty cute.
Yeah, we got rave reviews from our grandmother at the time, so we thought, okay, we definitely got to keep going. But yeah, and then we got our first camera at 10, and I always say, as cheesy as it sounds, it's like we kind of haven't stopped hitting record since then. We've never really considered anything else to do with our lives since then, and we're 38 now, so I don't foresee us stopping at any point.
And that's really the goal. Like, the longer we can keep making movies like we did when we were 10, we're winning, right? So for us, that's success.
So yes. So all right. So first, let's ask the question that might be on other people's minds as well. You guys said you're 38, but was it like the VHF a video camera, or was it past that where you all the way into audio and digital then, or did you still have VHS tape in there?
No, so it wasn't a full VHS. By the time we started, they were like mini DVs. They were like these mini VHSs that you put in. And our first editing system was analog, so we didn't work on film, but we definitely, when we started editing those early movies, They were it was a total analog system with dials and all that stuff. And it wasn't until we were really in high school that we got
our first digital editing program. Yeah.
So what was your first film that you did together?
Well, I mean,
you mean like when we were kids?
Yeah.
Or,
okay, well, God, like there's all these phases, right? Like from 10 to 14, it was ridiculous films like Who's the Aliens Now, you know? And then when we were 14,
which was a great film.
You know, very proud of that.
Who's the Aliens Now is still a wonderful masterpiece in my mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And when we were 14 is when we made our first serious film where we like cast adults as the actors. You know, we were still involved in the community theater, and we were involved in that community theater.
I wrote a shot list, like tried to figure out how do we make something that really looks like a movie.
Right.
And that was a movie called INN for the Night. And it was sort of like a horror movie, but with a non-smoking message.
Yeah.
And that was
like our first like actual like I would say attempt at it in earnest. And then we made another one in high school. And then like our first real serious short film was a film we made when we were 19 called Simple Joys.
And that was out here in LA, and that was like, it took us a year to raise the money for that, friends and family. And this was before Kickstarter or Indiegogo. We had to make brochures, put them in the mail, and mail them all to any family member we could think of. Sometimes checks would come in for 20, which was great, sometimes for 100. And after a year of all that, we had enough to actually put together a legitimate 5-day shoot. The movie was called Simple Joys, and it starred an actor named Thomas Dekker, who's still acting and is wonderful, and the late Barry Dennen, who
something of kind of a legend. He was the original Pontius Pilate in Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway in the film. He was the original MC in Cabaret opposite Judi Dench. He had
Kubrick's The Shining, like he had a little role.
That's
so
right.
We had really like put together something like of what would be considered like a thesis film, and did the festival circuit and all that stuff for Simple Joys, and that was like our first like I would say legitimate like project.
Yeah.
So this was a real project for you because you had to fundraise. You had to, like you said, you put together all the shot lists. So that means you directed it, you shot it, and you wrote it, right? So you wrote it too, and then you attracted this talent. What was it like writing that film? And how do you guys collaborate when you do so?
Okay, so the breakdown with our collaboration is we write and direct together. We're a team, but we always break story and character. Like the script phase, and the story is really always our own. The overall vision is always our own. I take the lead on the writing, and then Gary backs me up, and he sort of takes the lead on the directing, and I back him up. But we split those responsibilities.
Yeah, and we came to that because it's even if you date all the way back through high school and even that first legitimate short film that we will call it Simple Joys, that first one that we did proper. I think everybody has to find what works for them. And I know that a lot of people that may be listening aren't in a partnership, but there might be a lot that are in a partnership. And I think what I will say is every two people might come up with their own system. But for us, it was important that one of us was always in the driver's seat for those two very important parts of the process. Like once the story was negotiated, somebody needed to be able to make the final decision and take that driver's seat when it came to writing. And then the other one of us needed to do that for directing, because for us, it allowed a certain amount of freedom that we think is needed in those particular two spots when you're making a film.
And it's good because, I think part of the process is conflict, right? Like, especially with twins who you think have the same experience, might have the same outlook on life. So but when you start to negotiate sort of story points or character points, and you're seeing it differently, that's when you sort of start to really break through to something, I think, deeper.
Yeah.
But having one in the driver's seat for directing and writing allowed it to at a certain point go, okay, no, we have to go in this direction moving forward. Like if there isn't a moment where you just make a decision and move forward, you can get stuck in the quagmire of that forever,
Has there been any instances where you wrote something and you just knew this was it, and then your brother came in and said, I don't know, and how do you deal with that feedback?
Oh my God.
That's almost every project.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
that's every day on every project with everything we do. How do we deal with it? I'll tell you, at 38, it's like we built up the antibodies, you know what I mean, to deal with that. When you're starting out and you're young, it was very difficult.
It can become contentious.
Yeah.
And for us, like, we would have a problem separating that tension like away from our real lives. Now at 38, when we're breaking story, we know we set aside time. We're like, we're here, we're going to do the outline. And even if it gets a little bit heated, we know that it's not real, right? Like, and once we put the stop button on that session, it goes away.
It's over. And what's interesting for us, early on, there was a documentary about the Sherman Brothers, who wrote all of those famous songs for the Disney musicals, Mary Poppins, very famously, and Jungle Book. They wrote the songs, It's a Small World. And they were brothers, and one wrote the lyrics and the other wrote the music. And they had allowed that creative process, the contentious part, to erode their relationship so poorly that their own children didn't know each other. And at the premiere of Mary Poppins, they were sitting on opposite sides of the theater. And I remember watching that and going, well, we have to make sure that's not us. Like, we have to, that was sort of a cautionary tale.
Yeah. And let me back up and just explain why it can get this way. I think that no two people see one thing the same way, even if you're identical twin brothers. In fact, we come from stories sometimes from such different places. And when you are passionate about what you do tend to get very, I guess, passionate or heated about your ideas. And I feel like in any collaboration, that is a huge possibility. I almost want to say bound to happen, but you do have to realize, like, how to fight for those ideas, how to have an actual conversation about those ideas, relay those ideas, and not let it get to that point. But I do think that that certain amount of passion, that little fight that you have for the direction you think something should go, is really healthy. Because a lot of the times, there's almost all of the time with us, there is a breakthrough aha moment. That's it. It's not quite what I was thinking. It's not quite what you were thinking. It's this. And then the two of us are elated. We're so happy. But if we didn't have those conversations, we wouldn't have gotten to that right thing. And we always know, it's really interesting, once that right thing comes to light, we both know right away. The second it's said, we're like, that's it.
That's the
and
idea.
it's so satisfying. And I do think it's actually really good for the process.
It is really good for the process, but to sort of add on to that, I think at the nucleus, what you said, like, you do need to be passionate. You have to fight for your ideas. I think what we've learned, you know, not just in arguing story points and character points with each other, but if we're discussing it with a producer or an executive, you have to know what you want, but the key is you have to also listen to what other people are telling you. Because your idea, as passionate as you are about it, may not always be the best thing for the project. And I think that's the skill set you learn the more that you make shorts, you make features. It's going, all right, the movie and the story always comes before what I think personally.
And by the way, the movie and the story always has the answers somewhere buried inside it. It's so interesting how, like, so often that thing that you can't crack, when you finally do, you realize, and this is very generic and very broad, that it was there the whole time. It was
staring you in the face.
Staring you right in the face. Yeah.
I think one of the major through lines of a lot of these conversations we have is that you have to learn how to accept feedback, which comes with listening and making sure that you get all points of view. And it's interesting, people out there who are listening, even twins who have shared experiences, who come from the same womb, they're going to have different points of view. And it's all about accepting and making sure that the best product is out there. So I applaud you guys, because you keep saying at 38, but that breakthrough moment had to come sooner than 38. But I understand that, and that cautionary tale that you said where those kids did not even know each other. Whew, that is that is sad. Let's talk about some of your projects. All right. So now you are award-winning filmmakers. Okay. The GLAAD nominated and Outfest Audience Award-winning Geography Club. Let's talk about that project. Tell me what that process was like.
So this was a book that when we were working, and we started off, you know, we had worked at several different production companies, and actually we both worked at the same time, which is super cool for a production company called Hyperion Pictures. And we were lowest on the totem pole. So a lot of our job was reading scripts, reading projects, and doing coverage on it, which, you know, I'm sure you talked about before. And all coverage is a report to give to an executive that gives your opinion on, hey, this is what it's about, this is what I think about it. And we had read the book Geography Club as just coverage at 19 years old. And
we loved it.
We loved it, and we gave it really great feedback. And many years later, when we were represented, our literary manager just so happened to have the rights to make this book. And he approached us about it. He's like, listen, like, I really think this would be a project you guys would be great.
But this is an interesting tie-in, because before we signed with this literary manager, he'd asked to see some of our work. So he read some samples, but also he watched that very first short film we did, Simple Joys. And he thought that the tone of that movie would be the right tone for something like Geography Club. The only reason why I bring it up is because we've spoken about Simple Joys. So you never know, that thing you do at 19 that you don't know if it's going to have any impact, all of these years later was sort of like
certainly made somebody believe who held the rights to this very, this book was really popular, made them believe that we were the right people to take on that project. And I mean, immediately we said yes, there was no money for the movie yet. We weren't being paid to write the script. We were in our early 20s at this point, and we just knew it was a great opportunity. We loved the project, and we knew how rare it was for someone to hold the rights to a book like this and then want us, we had to pitch our idea and our take on it, which we did, and everybody, it was him and one other producer.
And we're both gay. So, and I think, this is a coming of age movie about a gay student in high school. So it was something where the subject matter was we just deeply resonated with it.
We deeply resonated with the central character, the central themes. Like, it was super personal to us in many ways, being an LGBTQ plus story. We went down that road, but just with these two producers, and all they had were the rights to the book, and we were giving them a screenplay. And it took many years after the screenplay was finally done, of doing table readings and trying to find the financing. And of course, there's no guarantees. And we were very fortunate that somebody came in many years after we started and felt the same way about this project that the four of us had, and decided to fully finance it themselves. And that's where the movie basically started, and then we were able to get it going. And that's sort of how it all came to be.
Yeah.
You keep saying many years. Let's talk about how many years, because I think a lot of people, when they write their scripts and they get all that far, they're like, oh, we're going. How long was the stall?
I mean, it's really funny, because I feel like, God, with
felt
that
like
one,
forever,
I felt like
but-
because I think we made it when we were 26, and we probably got started around 22 or 23. It's so weird. I mean, the older I get, the timelines start to get all really muddy. I don't know why that is. I'm like, I don't know.
But a good 3 or 4 years, definitely at least 3, but it could have been 4. And, and now looking back, when we were so young then, it felt like it took forever, and there's something like this ever going to happen. And, now I'm like, wow, 3 or 4 years, like, we were really lucky to even get it made at all, just because it's tough. Like, there's a lot of, the stars have to align. And, I think a lot of people will say a lot of different things, but I do think it's always, with every project, a combination of talent and luck, and it being the right property or the right piece for the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And all those stars kind of have to align sometimes for something to be able to move forward in that way.
Correct.
I want to add to that. It takes preparation too, and you guys had already laid a foundation with the projects that you had done when you were younger. In fact, you said somebody looking at Simple Joy said that you guys were the right ones for this. So the fact that you on your own were already making films, and then you just did coverage on this book, and now boom, yeah, you guys should do this based on what you've already showed us. So I love the fact that you were prepared, even though it did take time. So yeah, it's luck, it's everything, being in the right place, right time, but the preparation was key as well. So congrats to you for that. And then it won awards. So hey,
Yeah, we're very proud of it. It's still available for anybody that wants to rent it. Go on Amazon. It's definitely still out there, and would love for people to check it out, because I still think its central themes resonate today,
So the main portion of our talk today, our conversation today, is going to be creative control. But before we get into that, I cannot skip over these Lifetime movies, because there's so many out there. So how did you guys dip your toe in the Christmas movie onslaught?
Well, that's interesting. Because of films like Geography Club, a studio that is still making making lots of these movies who we absolutely love working with, Mar Vista, approached us to direct one at first for the network Ion. And it was called is called How Sarah Got Her Wings. And this was a script that was already written by a very talented writer, Damon Hill. We loved it. It's a Christmas movie. But it was also like really cool. It reminded us of like defending your life, for Heaven Can Wait. And so we were immediately on board. We were like, oh my God, like this is so us. Like this is so perfect. And so our first Christmas movie, we didn't write that one.
We didn't write that one. And what's interesting is, and by the way, even if you don't write something and you're directing it, it's still storytelling. And for Gary and I, when we do a project, whether it's our own that we create, from the beginning, whether we're adapting somebody else's work or whether we're just shooting somebody else's screenplay, we find a way to fall in love every single time with everything we decide to take on. So yeah, there are a million of these Christmas movies, but for us, we're going to take it as seriously as if we're doing something that we started, a project from conception and birth it, we really, really believe in work begets work. And also it makes you, I think, a sharper artist to take on other people's material and find a way of making it your own. Or even working inside sort of the Lifetime Christmas movie realm where you're writing a script that some people think, oh, that's super generic and that plot is done a million times.
I think what you're driving at is people have a certain cynicism when it comes to TV
Correct.
Christmas movies where they're like, oh, I get it. Girl goes back to her hometown. It's like, okay, so a lot of their plots can be really similar. But what Edmund's saying and is how we approach every single one is who cares, right? I think every single one is an opportunity to make something that's somebody's favorite movie. And we've brought our greatest passion and efforts and talents to every movie that we've done, and the Christmas movies are no less than any other.
Yes, that's exactly right. And also I think it's made us, working inside that space has made us stronger, I think, as filmmakers and storytellers when we go back and do our own original projects.
Yeah. That feels like it's a challenge to make it stand out, to what makes it different than the rest, or like you said, how can you make it your own and give it your special touch. So I appreciate that you guys took it at that and took it as seriously as that, because yes, there are a lot of them, but what can we do to make ours like really just stand out, right?
Yeah, well, there are certain boundaries, but inside those boundaries, you can do whatever you want. I mean, in terms of like, there's no reason that the characters have to be two-dimensional or the dialogue has to be two-dimensional. Fine, she goes back to her hometown. Fine, she reconnects with an ex-boyfriend, and those are story tropes that you may have seen in other Christmas movies. But the relationship between those two people, you could bring as much three-dimensional, serious character stuff as you want to that. There's no limit to what you can do inside those spaces.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough after How Sarah Got Her Wings to be able to write and direct an original Lifetime Christmas movie called The Country Christmas Harmony, and that was really fun for us to be able to really kind of put all these things, to be able to start from the very beginning and actually do all these things, like physically execute them. And we're both so proud of both of those films, and they're both different in plots. And but yeah, like you're saying, well, like it is a matter of like, what's that special thing I can bring to it? And what Edmund is saying is, lots of different, there are your own original ideas, which can maybe have no parameters at all. But when you're working in a TV movie space, yes, there is more of a formula. There's a format, right? So working within a format can be restricting if you let it be, but it doesn't have to be, right? You can bring anything you want, to the table within that format. And there are other cooks in the kitchen that are great. It is a very collaborative process from studio to network, and everybody's in it to try to make something really great. Like that's what we've always found.
Right. Nobody, people go, they make a million of these Christmas movies a year. It's just a big business. No one cares. That's not been our experience. No. Everybody from the executives at the studio to the network care very, very much that these stories are real and these people are real. And they take place during Christmas. Great. I love that.
We love Christmas. Yeah. Nobody loves Christmas more than two people you're talking to right now.
So that just brings us right into what we want to talk about today, creative control. Because again, Simple Joys, you guys, right? When you did Geography Club, it was a process, it was a collaboration, and then moving into the Christmas movies and even to the reality space, it's collaboration. So let's talk about creative control and how that works when you're doing your own projects versus when you're contracted, let's say, to do other projects.
Okay, well, I think we should start when you're doing your own projects. It's really interesting. At first, you have complete creative control. No one's seen it yet, but you, or in our case, us. But that doesn't always stay, right? Especially it never stays. If you want to get it made, and sometimes it's somebody's doing a pilot, they want to make a series. We tend to normally go for developing feature films, but the idea is to always get these feature films made. And the further along you get in that process, the more people become involved. People that are financing it or physically producing it, or even actors that you bring to the table that have their own perspective on the characters that you've cast them to play. So the more people that are involved, the more opinions come to the table. And for us, we love that. Like, we always think that if somebody is reacting to the screenplay in a certain way, like, it's always coming from somewhere. It's really important to listen. And even if what an executive is saying, a producer, an actor is saying doesn't initially resonate with you, you always need to take a step back and say, okay, but why are they saying this?
Like, what's at the core of their note? They're fixed for something maybe completely wrong, but what they're picking up on is probably right. And so, like, just to bounce off of what you're saying, like, we've always seen the screenplay and the movie itself as sort of a living, breathing organism. And honestly, like, the more you allow people to collaborate and you listen to their ideas, the better it is. The biggest mistake you can make is saying there's just one specific way this story has to be told, and being extremely stubborn in driving that one way through the entire process. You're not going to get anywhere.
No, listen, if it's your own, independent film and you're financing it yourself, I guess at the end of the day, technically you can have all the creative control. But is that really a good thing? I don't think so, in my opinion.
And we use this analogy all of the time, and it's super corny, but we love it. And a movie is like a baby, right? Or a kid. And you may have certain ideas for that kid. Oh, I want him to be just like me and go into filmmaking, or I want to be a lawyer or a doctor. But when somebody's growing up, they start to tell you who they are and what they are. So you have to listen, not just to the people that you're collaborating with. You have to keep your eye on the project itself and react to what it's telling you it wants to be. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that there are levels. Well, I do think if it's an independent film, of course you do retain more of the creative control than you would if you're being hired by a network or studio to write something. But I guess to sort of put a period on this particular thing is, we believe that you shouldn't treat it that much differently, that every project is a village. And even if you can have more creative control, maybe it's not the greatest thing for you to always assert that when there are other people involved. But yes, if there is a studio and a network and it's a job that you're being hired to do, you don't really have as many choices in that way. But I think for us, we've decided to not make there be much of a difference between those two things. So we don't really feel that as heavily when we are hired to do something.
Yeah.
Working on a project is a collaboration. So like you said before, it takes a village, and there is a village involved with all of that. When it comes to writing, a lot of people, a lot of writers, aspiring writers and veteran writers, feel that writing is very personal, right? So when it comes to collaboration, how did that sense of a village how did it help you grow as a writer?
Well, I mean, it's so interesting. God, it's such a loaded question. And it's really interesting because the village or the collaboration part, it is deeply personal, right? So somebody may have a note that is antithetical to what you were really trying to say with this particular project. One, if what you're trying to say is right, then you can communicate that, right? Being collaborative doesn't mean just taking everybody's ideas without filtering that, right? It is a discourse. It is a dialogue. It's important not to be defensive. It's important to listen. But I think that somebody may come in and their perspective may be completely different than what you're trying to say, but it is project to project basis, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think that, yeah, when you start, like, it is personal. And I think some people that are writing are only interested in telling their personal story the way that they want to tell it. And I absolutely think that's totally okay.
that's valid.
That's valid. And I think for us, that once we've got out that first draft that we've agreed upon, you know, we have established a community of people that are other writers, other filmmakers. And before we even send it out to the world, we like to go within our own community and get reactions to this piece. And we very much value the opinions of that community and let it absolutely inform, you know, that next draft. Now, if somebody has a personal story that they want to tell and they don't want that part of the process, I think that's totally fine.
Right.
I do.
Yeah. And if they're trying to say something and they have a producer that wants to come on and finance it, and this producer has completely different ideas and this is a deeply personal story, again, that may not be the right producer. Getting the movie made is not always the best thing for the movie, which is a crazy thing to say. You know, so again, I think we're speaking in broad generalizations. It's different when it's a movie like Geography Club, which is an adaptation of something, versus an independent film that we're trying to get made on our own, versus a Christmas movie, right? Like a Christmas movie, there is a client, there are producers. You don't have a say. You're selling to them, right? So then for that, you can try and keep the integrity of the project as much as possible. See every note as sort of an opportunity to find a way of saying something that you were trying to say, but just sort of in a different way. That's a completely different experience than, say, trying to get a movie made, where a producer may come in and, you know, you see it this way, they see it another way. Well, again, going back to what's best for the film, that may not be the right producer. So you have to make sure that who you choose to collaborate with is somebody that you respect, and it's somebody that understands the vision of the film. But once you make the decision to let them in, then you have to sort of hear them out.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad we're having this conversation, because you guys give so many different perspectives to the process, you know, the independent film and Christmas movie and the adaptations. So I appreciate you sharing that, because some people, like you said, they'll write a script and this is it. This is the law. This is what it is. So they got to find a way. If they're gonna make that get made, they're gonna have to find people that align with their vision. But if they are being contracted or are being asked to write a story, and there are other people coming in, that creative control is not going to be theirs for too long. They're going to have to find a way to, quote unquote, adapt. So thank you for that. You guys have dropped some gems today, and we're not quite done yet, because we want to talk about how you got into reality television and what that journey has looked like for you guys.
I mean, we both love reality TV. It's you know, I think at the core of who we are is just storytellers. And so one thing that makes us unique to some people versus others is even in the scripted stuff, we love an independent film. That's something that comes from our heads. We love to adapt a movie and make that an independent film. We love making TV movies and Christmas movies and whatnot. All of those are very different, even ways of approaching scripted. But for us, they're all opportunities to tell a story, and reality TV is another way to get to tell stories. We got involved in it sort of in our later 20s through friends who were producing reality TV. And it just becomes something that became part of the whole thing for us, like just an additional passion. You know, a lot of these shows that we work on, especially a lot of shows that, like, you know, I could say I work on, and I know Edmund feels the same way, are just really exciting. It's totally different, obviously, than scripted, but not in the sense that at the end of the day, somebody is sitting down to watch a story that you're telling them, and it's making them feel a certain way.
Right.
And I think that, like, the old telling a story by the campfire and getting those reactions from people is kind of what drives a storyteller. It's the putting something together and letting somebody have an emotion towards that story that you're telling.
And by the way, and it's all about truth. And reality TV, ironically enough, doesn't work when people feel it isn't real. You know what I mean? The whole idea of reality TV is to tell stories authentically. So the same exact logic applies to scripted. If somebody watches your movie and it's totally on the surface and two-dimensional, and doesn't feel real, and they don't trust what they're seeing is coming from an authentic place, they'll tune out. I think it's finding a different way of getting to that same core thing, you know?
Yeah, and I think now that we've been doing both for so long, at least 10 years, I think that like we've learned so much from reality that we take to scripted, and we learn so much from scripted that we take to reality that it's all so blurry for us now. I think it's all just, okay, like, where is the story supposed to go? Like, how do we keep it real? How do we keep it truthful? Like, what do you think, like, trying to put your head in what the audience is thinking while they're watching that, and that could be, you know, it could be a reality TV show, it could be scripted, but at the same, no matter what it is, somebody is sitting down to watch this piece, and you have to consider them when putting it together.
So, all right. So when something is scripted, you see the beginning, the middle, and the end, and you go forth doing that. With reality shows, not scripted, how do you not find a story, but how do you ensure that the story is told to get to the end point? You know what I'm saying? So what's that process like? Now, I know it's different on Bakedtopia than it is on Huntsville, right? So I want to know, like, how does that work?
Well, they are, yes, there's different, just like movies, there's different genres, and cooking is different than Huntsville. I think that one thing that they all share in common is there's more footage than there is time to tell a 30-minute story or an hour-long story. So it's always, I think for me anyway, working backwards, where does this end? And what are the key pieces that we need to absolutely tell in order to get to this end point? And now we have a ton of footage, and it's massive. So it is being judicious and picking out what are the most essential things that are absolutely needed to know, and how do we present them. So I think that's probably that.
And there are storytelling devices that you learn on the scripted side. For instance, like the old Hitchcockian bomb under the table, right? Setting up tension in a way that may be more applicable to a docuseries. You know, finding ways to surprise an audience with a reveal, like all of those things that you learn sort of in the film school stage, but just by being a film fan, if you apply that to reality TV, again, it may be different in a baking show what the element of surprise is versus a docuseries. But again, like it really goes hand in hand.
It can be. It's like in a cooking show, it can be somebody's, cake is going to come out of the oven, undercooked. So it's, watching them set that timer and real life, setting up that, is that enough time to get this, giant, cake to bake correctly? And then surprise, surprise, it isn't, So you always have to find different ways depending on what actually happened.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Exposition or setup is always, it's as crucial in reality. So for us, because we work exclusively really on the story side, we always approach it from story and character, the same way we do it scripted.
That helps with my next question, because like when you're writing scripts, you want to tell kind of like the backstory and really give the character dimensions. How important are telling backstories on reality shows?
So hard, and depending on what they are, sometimes you have a line or two to say it. Sometimes the docuseries, you might have a whole season to get into it.
Important, because if you don't know why somebody wants to bake this particular cake or what somebody's background is, then their point of view may be missed in a scene in a docuseries. Like background and exposition and setup is still everything in reality.
You have to care about who you're watching. So sometimes on a baking show, it's 2 lines of like, my name is so-and-so, I've been cooking forever, and winning this competition would be huge because it would allow me to open up my dream restaurant. And those 2 lines right there, you're like, man, I'm rooting for that person. They have a dream. Winning this would help them fulfill their dream. They've been doing it for these, they have a family, whatever it is.
My grandmother was a baker, and I'm wanting to live up to her,
I want to make her proud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so sometimes if you have 2 lines to say it, it's super tough, but you got to make sure that you are saying it so somebody cares about watching that rest of that story, the rest of that episode.
And it feels like the glue of these reality shows are those talking heads. Like when they go into a room and you sit down and you talk to them one-on-one about what they might have experienced or what brought them here or what, so on Bakedtopia or Huntsville, you're going to get those people in a room talking to the camera about what makes them go, right? So how long are those sessions? Like, is it like one day you sit them down, or is it like different sessions that they have?
It depends on the show. So there's certain formats. So sometimes there's shows where every, like on a cooking show, where every episode has contestants that you'll meet at the beginning of the episode, and only one will win. And then there are competition shows where your cast goes season long, or or a docuseries where your cast goes season long. So if it's a docuseries where they're always on, you have many different sessions. And I think that the time that you sit down with them varies depending on the day. The sessions can be sometimes, sadly, like really quick, but it's always better when you get more time. But there's never any time. There's never any time.
There's never any time. There's never any money. That's true in reality. It's true in scripted. We have no time. We have no money.
So how has writing for reality affected your writing? How does it help you?
So I think there's just an easy answer for me, and I used the word earlier, the word judicious, right? Being able to like really pick and choose what parts of the story you're telling. And for us, like with reality TV, sometimes just having mountains of raw footage that you have to distill, it really trained me, and I think you as well, to like really understand where you can take a little time to tell a story, but where the story had to like absolutely move on. I feel
absolutely, it's precision. What you learn in reality is what you think you need 10 sentences to say. You can say it in 2 sentences, and it may be even more effective. That's what reality is.
Yeah.
All right. So I've picked your brains a lot on behalf of the community. Is there any advice that you'd like to give to writers as they go forth writing their scripts for this year's competition?
Yes. So my advice to writers is write every day. The idea of I need to be inspired to write, I think, is less useful than just write 5 pages. Just write 5 pages every single day. Stay committed to what you're doing. The goal is the process. The goal is the journey. The goal is not the destination. And I think if you keep that in mind, your work will be better. And that's what I would say.
I 100% agree with that. On a more technical level, if you haven't started something, one little thing that we found at the beginning of our careers where you should just start going with the screenplay like right away based on an idea, and we would get caught in so many different traps. We weren't really sure where the story was headed. And now we're big believers in outlining. Sometimes a quick outline, a lot of the times we'll do a scene by scene outline, because you really get a bird's eye view, right, of what the whole story is, and all those traps that you can hit in the middle of a screenplay, which are so difficult to like get through if you're actually writing the dialogue, on the actual screenplay itself. When you can see them from an outline form, like you have time to fix them before you get there in the actual screen. And I think that it saves you a lot of time, and it helps you see the story in a way that I think helps that screenplay process run smoother once you actually start.
Absolutely. The stronger the foundation, the better the process, the smoother the process is going to go. But I will caution you, you have your outline, you get started. Don't be so married to the outline either. Like you may get to page 30 or 40 and start wanting to switch things up. And as long as you have a path to do that, go for it.
Okay. Listen, guys, I could keep you here for 2 hours. We only have 45 minutes, but I wanted to thank you for just sharing with the audience, and I love the way you guys play off each other. So it's just great. Like you start a thought, you finish the thought, and then you just keep going, and I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing how tension can cause diamonds, like with the films that you've made. Just really trying to get the story right is the most important thing. So I thank you guys for joining us today. Hopefully we'll have you on again so we can talk more in depth about your films and everything that you've done. But Gary and Edmund, thank you for joining us today on Writers Unscripted.
I'm happy to come back anytime. Yeah.
One thing we like to do before we let our guests go, we do have this 5 questions that we like to ask, right? So it's kind of like a tag team thing. So either one of you can answer these. If you want us to ask it each of you, that's fine. But if you want to just run through the questions, that's fine as well. All right, to the both of you, what is a word that you use all the time when you're writing? Overuse, maybe.
I think character.
What do you mean? A word like
you mean like in the process, like something we're talking
like
about?
a literal word that when you're writing, that word always pops up. Maybe you overuse it when you're writing.
Like in screen, probably incredulous. I don't know why.
You mean incredulous?
Yeah, I think I could write the word incredulous. Yeah. Or maybe interminable.
You did write Christmas Frippery once.
I did write Frippery, and RGP, who's a good friend of ours, and has never let me live that one down. Okay.
All right, we know your superpowers are writing, directing, producing, doing it all. But if unrelated to the field, if you had one superpower, what would it be?
The superpower we talk about, I don't even know if this is a real superpower. It's not a superpower that Marvel would make a movie on. But if I can touch a book, have all of the knowledge of the book in my, I think like Meteor Man had this, right?
You can like
like that movie, upload a book into my brain, fully comprehended and remember all of it. That would be my superpower.
Marvel definitely would do that. They made Madam Web. Hello. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm digressing. All right, here we go. What's something you wish you could spend more time on?
I wish I can, spend more time on. Honestly, like for me, it's always just like reading, watching documentaries. I feel like there's so much to know in this world, and I feel like the busier you get, the more like the weeks go by, and you're like, did I learn anything new? And I oftentimes would be like, I really didn't. So we're always trying to carve out time to just like
read documentaries. We watch as many films as possible. Like being a student of the thing you love.
I love new information. Like,
but also being a student of everything else outside of film is also so important. If you don't know history, if you don't know philosophy, you're not going to have much to bring to the story. So absorbing all of that is what I think.
What's going on in the world is so important for us to like always know. Like it's just like everything that's going on, like that's one thing that we do take time to
socially, politically, all of that stuff.
All right, now you guys, you're doing a lot right now. This is an audible on my iPad. We got to balance this out. What do you guys do to unwind? Come on, because you're always soaking stuff in. What do you do to unwind?
Yeah, wine country is huge. Yeah,
we love the solving, San Ynez region. So,
and I think this year playing, we both got dogs this year. So I feel like now, honestly, just being on the couch with my dog, brings.
Right. And we've oddly gotten addicted to going to this arcade in downtown. That's when we get our competitiveness out. There's like this basketball, like you just shoot the thing, and I think like for me and you, like we get our competition side out with each other on that. Yeah, so we do that too.
Okay, good. Sure, because you made it seem like you were machines, like always taking stuff in. Got to do it. All right. So you balance it out. That's good. Last question: what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Ooh. Our father was a criminal defense attorney. True crime is a genre that is really fascinating. We have friends that are criminal defense attorneys, and I'm always interested in picking their brains. So I think if I didn't go into this,
you think you'd be an attorney?
Yeah,
I don't know. For me, that's like it's so up in the air. I definitely feel like the family profession was a lawyer, so it's what's at the top of my head. But I don't know. Like I'm really into politics and what's going on in the world, but I know definitively I would never want to be a politician or work on the campaign. So I'm just going to go lawyer because it's the safest thing to say.
Safer than politician, that's for sure. Guys, thank you so much. It is Gary. It is Edmund Entin. They are here. I hope you guys took in a lot of what they said today because they said a lot. We'd love to have you back in future episodes. Please, if you're available, let us know. Like I said, they have a lot of projects coming out. They're not ready to reveal what they are just not now, but by the end of the year, there'll be other things. And you can go back and you can watch the Christmas movies. It's probably still in the Lifetime archives, the Country Christmas Harmony, and on Ion, Mar Vista, How Sarah Got Her Wings. Is Geography Club available somewhere?
Geography Club, a movie we did called Sins of Our Youth, is also out there.
That's on Peacock.
There's Ally Sheedy, Lucas Till, who played MacGyver. Really good, cool cast. Those are all out there. You can find all 4 of those.
And Love and Marriage Huntsville is still around. Marriage Boot Camp is coming back out. You guys, and RuPaul, what did you gonna say?
Secret Celebrity Drag Race. I don't know if that's coming back. I don't know yet. We're waiting to hear. But RuPaul's regular Drag Race is definitely going. So that's on right now.
They win Emmys. Do you hear what I'm saying? They win Emmys.
They do.
Yes. All right, so you guys, thank you so much, and everyone else, just look out for more episodes of Writers Unscripted. We are into the second tier now, but you guys are still free to submit, and the ceremonies will be coming up later this year. So please stay tuned for more Writers Unscripted. We love you. Thank you. Bye.